Hey guys, tonight we're heading to the heart of 1920s Kyoto, into a world of silk kimonos, powdered faces, and a meticulous, beautiful, and yes, sometimes profoundly lonely existence. You're about to become a young apprentice, a maiko, stepping into a very different kind of life. Imagine the scent of cherry blossoms and the soft murmur of the Kamo River as you trudge along the cobbled streets of Gion. Your small, calloused hand is clutched by an older woman, a woman whose face is a mask of weary kindness and whose reputation is your entire future. You probably won't survive this. By the way, I mean, not as the person you are now. The you of this story is about to be erased and remade. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You feel the slight, rhythmic ache in your calves as you walk. The trip to Kyoto from your small village was long and confusing. A blur of bustling markets and train whistles. You can still smell the pungent oil of the train engine and the faint, sweet scent of your mother's final embrace. But now, all of that feels like a lifetime ago. The woman beside you, the proprietress of the Okiya, or geisha house, is named Mama-san. She's not your mother, not anymore. She's your future. Her gaze is sharp, taking in every detail of the passing streetscape. From the lanterns glowing softly in front of tea houses to the shadows of senior geisha. Their elaborate hairstyles catching the moonlight like miniature sculptures. You're just a child, and in this city of beauty and art, you're currently a blank canvas. An investment. You finally stop in front of a modest two-story wooden building. The paper screens are lit from within, and you can hear the faint twang of a shamisen, a three-stringed instrument, drifting from an upper floor. Mama-san slides open the heavy wooden door, and you step inside, the cool air smelling of old wood, rice powder, and incense. It's a scent that will become the scent of home. A group of girls, some a few years older than you, stop their work and stare. They are apprentices like you, and their faces are a mix of curiosity and something else you can't quite decipher, maybe a touch of pity. You see one girl carefully polishing a pair of getter, the traditional wooden clogs, her posture perfect. Another is meticulously folding a silk garment, her fingers moving with a practiced grace. You, on the other hand, just feel clunky and awkward in your simple village clothes. Mama-san claps her hands once, a sharp sound that cuts through the silence. This is our newest apprentice, she announces in a voice that brooks no argument. She doesn't introduce you by name. And in this house, your old name doesn't really matter anymore. You are now just another girl, another apprentice, another investment. You're given a simple, dark kimono to change into, and you are shown to a tiny room you'll share with two other girls. The room is sparse, with a thin mattress on the floor and a single small window looking out onto a cramped courtyard. This, you are told, is your new home. This is where your new life begins. Your entire world, for now, is this small room, the demanding woman downstairs, and a group of strangers who will soon become your family, your rivals, and your only true confidants. Historians still argue whether the Okiya system was more akin to a strict finishing school or a form of indentured servitude. And to be honest, as you stand there, it feels like a little bit of both. You are here to learn, but you also owe a massive debt, the cost of your upkeep. Your education, your very existence in this house. The first thing you're told is a quick, funny-ish detail. If you can't learn to tie your obi, you'll be useless. The obi, that wide sash on a kimono, can be up to 13 feet long, and tying it correctly is an art form in itself. It's a lot of pressure for a kid who used to spend her days chasing chickens. You see a small, wooden plaque on the wall with names written in elegant calligraphy. These are the names of the geisha who have successfully graduated from this house. You wonder if your name will ever appear there. Will you ever be good enough? The training is said to be notoriously brutal. From endless hours of music and dance practice to mastering the delicate art of conversation. A quirky historical tidbit: it was common for the apprentices to wear special kimono sleeves that could double as pockets for small items, like tissues or small sweets. It sounds cute, but it's just another detail to get right. Another thing to remember: as the day ends, you lie on your thin mattress, the sounds of Gion fading into a distant hum, and for the first time, you truly feel the weight of this new life. A life built on beauty, art, and an endless, exhausting pursuit of perfection. The sun peeks through the tiny window, and you're jolted awake by the brisk, no-nonsense clap of Mama San's hands. The day begins. There's no easing into it. You're immediately handed a broom and told to sweep the narrow hallway. A task that seems simple enough until Mama San points out a speck of dust you missed near the corner. It's an immediate lesson. Nothing is done halfway here. The girls you met yesterday are already up and about. Some scrubbing floors, others carrying buckets of water. They move with an economy of motion, a quiet efficiency that tells you they've been doing this for a long time. You, on the other hand, feel like a clumsy elephant in a room full of graceful gazelles. You knock over a small vase, and the sound feels deafeningly loud. A girl with a kind face gives you a quick, sympathetic smile before Mama San's sharp voice sends you back to your task. Your mornings are a blur of chores: polishing wooden floors until they shine like mirrors, cleaning the delicate paper screens, making sure not to tear the fragile material, hauling water from a nearby well, your small arms aching under the weight. Your old life of chasing chickens suddenly feels like a distant, lazy dream. This is a very different kind of physical labor, one that's designed not just to keep the house clean, but to train your body to move with precision and purpose. You learn to carry a heavy bucket without sloshing a single drop, to walk silently so as not to disturb the patrons sleeping upstairs. After the chores, your real education begins. A series of teachers arrives, each one a master of their craft. First, there's music. You sit cross-legged on the floor, a tiny shamisen placed in your lap. The teacher, a stern woman with fingers that look like they were born to play, shows you how to hold the plectrum. The sound you produce is a pathetic, tinny twang. She corrects your wrist position, your finger placement. Over and over, you repeat a simple scale until your fingertips are raw and your shoulders ache. You're learning that a geisha's life isn't just about glamour, it's about endless, grueling practice. A quirky historical tidbit: the shamisen was traditionally made with cat or dog skin, a detail that feels particularly strange and unsettling to a modern ear, though synthetic materials are common now. Next is dance. You are taught by a frail, older woman whose movements are still breathtakingly fluid and precise. She shows you how to hold your fan just so, how to angle your head, how to use your eyes to tell a story. You're not just moving, you're embodying a feeling, a character. The simplest gesture, like the flutter of a fan, must convey a world of meaning. It's exhausting, both physically and mentally. The repetitiveness feels endless. You try to mimic her, but your body feels stiff and awkward. The teacher just shakes her head and tells you, a geisha never wastes a movement. Every step, every glance, every breath has a purpose. You practice until your feet are sore and your muscles tremble. It's here that you learn one of your first real lessons. The beauty you see in a geisha's performance is built on a foundation of pain and discipline. A mainstream historical fact you learn, almost incidentally, is the importance of the tea ceremony, or cha no yu. It's not just about drinking tea. It's a meticulously choreographed ritual that embodies principles like harmony and respect. You are taught the proper way to hold the teacup, how to clean the utensils, and the correct order of every single step. It feels like an ancient, sacred dance, and you're just learning the first steps. The master tells you that the ceremony is about creating a moment of tranquility and beauty for your guest. A brief respite from the chaotic world outside. You're beginning to understand that your job isn't just to perform. It's to create an entire atmosphere. An experience. It's like being alive in Very expensive event planner, but for one guy and a cup of tea. Historians still argue whether the geisha's education was primarily for the benefit of the clients or a genuine effort to preserve traditional arts in a rapidly modernizing Japan. For you, right now, it just feels like work. Hard work. You're constantly tired, constantly sore, and your mind is so full of new information, new songs, new dance steps, new rituals, that you feel like a cup overflowing with water. The day ends the way it began, with chores, a simple meal of rice and vegetables, and a quiet retreat to your small room. As you drift off to sleep, you can still feel the ghost of a shamisen in your fingers and the ache in your feet from dancing. You're not a child anymore. You're a work in progress. You wake up one morning with a new, and slightly terrifying, task on the horizon, the art of looking pretty. This isn't your mother's kind of pretty, with a splash of water on your face and a quick comb through of your hair. This is an all-day, highly uncomfortable, and incredibly precise process. You're led to a small, brightly lit room where a senior geisha, whose face is a smooth, white canvas, sits patiently. She smiles, and you can see a fine network of wrinkles around her eyes that the makeup can't quite hide. She's your first lesson in the illusion. The first step is a cream made of oil and beeswax applied to your face. It's thick and smells faintly of flowers, but it feels heavy and cloying on your skin. This isn't for beauty, but for function. It's a base layer to help the white makeup stick. Then comes the main event, a thick paste of rice powder mixed with water. It's applied with a wide, flat brush, and it feels cool at first, but quickly begins to tighten. You're told to hold still, absolutely still, as the geisha meticulously paints your face, neck, and chest. It's a shocking process, watching your own skin disappear under the stark white layer. You can't help but feel a little like a statue being painted. The most difficult part is your hairline. A tiny strip of natural skin is left visible around the edges of your face and at the nape of your neck, creating a precise line. This is a crucial element of the look. It creates an elegant frame for the face and hints at the natural person beneath the artifice. A quirky historical tidbit, the white makeup, known as oshiroi, was traditionally made with lead, which, as you can imagine, caused all sorts of health problems, from skin issues to hair loss. But in the 1920s, it's a newer, safer, we hope, zinc-based formula. Still, it feels like you're wearing a mask, a beautiful, heavy, and slightly suffocating mask. Next comes the eyebrows. They're drawn in with a thin, black pencil. No one has your natural eyebrows anymore. They're all the same. Thin, arched lines that give you a look of perpetual, gentle surprise. Then comes the lips. You're handed a tiny brush and a small pot of red lipstick. And you're taught to paint your lips not as they are, but as a smaller, more perfect bow. The geisha tells you, a geisha's lips are like a small, red flower. They are meant to be a delicate invitation, not a loud shout. You try to mimic her, but your hands are shaky, and you end up with a smudge. It's another lesson in precision. The hair is the grand finale, and it's a masterpiece of discomfort. Your hair is meticulously combed and sculpted into a massive, heavy hairstyle called the momohair. It's a complex style involving elaborate loops and bows, and it's held together with wax, pins, and ornaments. A mainstream historical fact you learn is that these elaborate hairstyles weren't redone every day. You have to sleep on a small, uncomfortable wooden block called a takamakura to avoid ruining the hairstyle. A few of the other girls show you how it works. You rest the nape of your neck on it, not your head. You try it, and it feels impossible. You can't imagine sleeping like this. And a part of you thinks this must be a joke, a test of your dedication. It's not. It's just a part of the job. Finally, you're handed an assortment of hair ornaments, called kanzashi. They're beautiful, often made of silk flowers, tiny bells, and jade. You get to choose a few, and you carefully place them in your hair. You look in the mirror, and you don't recognize yourself. The person staring back is a porcelain doll, a living piece of art. The geisha smiles at your astonished expression and says, This is not you. This is the geisha. You are merely the vessel. You feel the weight of the makeup, the tightness of your hair, and the full gravity of her words. Historians still argue whether the momo-wear and other elaborate hairstyles were a form of self-expression for the geisha or just another way to physically restrict and control them. For you, right now, it just feels heavy. As you walk out of the room, you feel like you're wearing a costume, but you also feel a flicker of pride. You're not just a girl from a village anymore. You're becoming a geisha, after mastering the art of the painted face and the torturous hairstyle. You're now faced with what seems like a simple task: walking. But this isn't just any walking. This is the art of graceful movement in the most impractical footwear imaginable. You're handed a pair of akobo, tall wooden sandals that look more like miniature stilts than shoes. They're made from a single block of wood, and they stand about 4 or 5 inches off the ground. A wide silk strap goes across the top of your foot. You try to put them on, and immediately feel unstable, like you're teetering on a high wire. The teacher for this particular lesson is a patient, elderly woman who can still glide across a room as if she were floating on air. She smiles at your awkwardness and says, "The akobo are a geisha's first stage." She explains that they're not just for height, they're to keep you beautiful. Expensive kimono from dragging on the ground. A practical tool, yes, but one that demands a complete re-education of your body. Your ankles feel weak and wobbly. The wood is surprisingly heavy, and your calves start to ache almost instantly. It's like trying to walk on 2 tiny wooden boats while balancing a heavy hairstyle on your head. You find yourself taking small, hesitant steps, afraid to fall. Every step feels like a victory and a close call all at once. The teacher demonstrates the proper technique. You're supposed to take small, deliberate steps, keeping your knees close together and your posture perfectly straight. The goal is to move with a quiet, shuffling rhythm, not a loud, clomping one. She tells you, a geisha's walk is a whisper, not a shout. You try to replicate it, but your steps are still too heavy, too loud. The sound of the wood on the floor echoes in the quiet house. A constant reminder of your amateur status. You fall, of course. Not a big, dramatic fall, but a little stumble that sends you lurching forward. The teacher gently helps you up, and you feel a hot flush of embarrassment. A quirky historical tidbit about the akobo: during the colder months, apprentices would sometimes stuff the hollowed-out parts of the wooden sole with small bundles of rice husks to provide a bit of warmth. It sounds a bit like an ancient version of a heated sock. But it's a detail that shows the constant battle between grace and practicality. You can't help but laugh a little at the thought of it. Here you are, learning to walk in what are essentially blocks of wood, and the apprentices of the past were just trying to keep their toes from freezing. You practice for hours, walking back and forth in the long hallway. At first, you're just focusing on not falling. Then, you start to focus on the teacher's instructions: small steps, knees together, back straight. You learn to balance your weight, to shift your hips just so. You can feel your muscles protesting. But with each passing minute, your steps become a little more confident, a little quieter. You're starting to understand that the geisha life is a series of tiny, perfect movements, each one practiced until it becomes second nature. It's a continuous process of breaking down your old body habits and rebuilding them into something new, something more elegant. A mainstream historical fact you pick up from one of the older apprentices is about the obodome, the small, decorative clasp that holds the obi in place. These little clasps were often valuable works of art, made from jade, coral, or precious metals. They were a sign of the geisha's status and a subtle way for them to display their personality. For you, right now, your only concern is the akobo, but you can see a glimpse of the future, of a world where every tiny detail, from your sandals to a little clasp, holds significance. Historians still argue whether the akobo and other restrictive clothing were a tool of social control or simply a part of a deeply aesthetic culture. For you, at this moment, they are just a challenge. But as the day winds down, you find yourself able to walk a little further without a stumble. The sound of the wood on the floor is a little less clumsy, a little more rhythmic. You're starting to find your footing, both literally and figuratively. Your training now shifts from the physical to the intellectual, though it's all inextricably linked. The next master you meet teaches the subtle and refined art of the tea ceremony, or cha no yu. But it's not just about preparing tea, it's about creating an entire experience of peace and beauty for a guest. Your teacher is a serene-looking woman with a gentle face, but her eyes are a fierce mirror of her attention to detail. She explains that the tea ceremony is a microcosm of Japanese philosophy, focusing on harmony, respect, purity, and tranquility. You think you're just learning how to make a cup of tea, but you quickly realize you're learning how to create a whole world for someone. For a few brief moments, the first thing you learn is not about the tea itself, but about the space. The tea house, or chashitsu, is designed to be a sanctuary from the outside world. It's small, with a low entrance called a nijiraguchi, which forces even the most important people to humble themselves and bow low to enter. You're told this is the first step in leaving the ego at the door. You practice sliding through this tiny door, your graceful movements still a work in progress. And you feel the symbolism. You're no longer just yourself, you're part of a ritual. Inside, everything has a purpose. The scroll on the wall, the simple flower arrangement, the way the light filters through the paper screens, all of it is intentional. The teacher explains that a geisha's role is to draw the guest's attention to these details, to foster a moment of appreciation for the simple beauty of the world. It's not about being the center of attention, it's about being the quiet guide. You practice arranging a single blossom in a vase, trying to find the perfect angle, the perfect balance. It's harder than it looks. Then comes the real work, the movements of the ceremony itself. You learn how to use a bamboo scoop, or chashaku, to measure the bright green powdered tea, or matcha. You learn how to whisk the tea with a bamboo whisk, or chasen, until it's a perfect, frothy green. Every movement is a dance. The way you hold the bowl, the way you pour the hot water, the way you present the tea to the guest, it's all choreographed. The teacher tells you, a geisha's hands should tell a story of quiet beauty. Your hands, still clumsy from years of village life, feel like they're shouting. A quirky historical tidbit: the teacups themselves are often flawed. They might be a bit lopsided, or have a tiny crack. The beauty, you're told, is in the imperfection, a concept called wabi-sabi. It's a bit of a mind-bender to you. Your entire life in the okiya has been about striving for perfection. And now you're being taught to appreciate the opposite. But you start to see the elegance in the idea that nothing in life is perfect. And true beauty lies in embracing that reality. It's a very different lesson than the ones about perfectly applied makeup or perfectly executed dance steps. A mainstream historical fact you absorb is that the tea ceremony was a crucial part of a geisha's training. And it was often a way for them to develop a deeper connection with a patron. It's a setting for quiet conversation, a chance to show your intelligence and wit, not just your artistic talents. It's a subtle dance of social interaction, a way to gauge a person's character without saying much at all. Historians still argue whether the cha no yu as practiced by geisha was a genuine spiritual practice or a form of high-level performance art designed to impress wealthy clients. For you, it feels like both. It's a performance, yes, but it's also a deeply meditative process. You find a quiet calm in the repetition, in the focused attention to each small detail. As you practice whisking the matcha, the gentle sound becomes a soothing hum, and for a moment, the heavy makeup, the elaborate hairstyle, the aching muscles all fade away. You're just a girl, a teacup, and a moment of tranquility, with a newfound, if shaky, sense of grace from your akobo training and the quiet calm of the tea ceremony. You're now introduced to another cornerstone of a geisha's life, the kimono. But this isn't just a dress. This is a multi-layered, intricate puzzle of silk, cords, and sashes that requires a special kind of endurance to wear and a specific kind of knowledge to put on. You are led into a room filled with beautiful kimonos. their colors and patterns like a vibrant garden. One of the senior geisha, a woman who moves with the practiced slowness of someone who has mastered every aspect of this life, stands before you. A kimono is not just clothing, she says, her voice as smooth as the silk she's holding. It is a story. It tells the season, the occasion, and the status of the woman wearing it. She holds up a beautiful kimono with a design of cherry blossoms. A design for spring. A geisha's wardrobe is a meticulously curated collection of art. And you are learning how to be a walking gallery. You learn a mainstream historical fact about kimonos. The fabric was incredibly expensive, often hand-painted with intricate designs. And a single kimono could cost more than a year's wages for an average person. It's a sobering thought that the beautiful clothes you will wear represent a small fortune. The process of getting dressed is a choreography in itself. First, you put on a simple cotton undergarment, a hadajuban, then, a second layer, the nagajuban, a silk underkimono. This one has a decorative collar that is meant to be seen. You learn how to make sure the collars overlap just so, creating a perfect V shape at the nape of your neck, a detail considered very elegant. You're told a quirky historical tidbit. The collars of the underkimono were often swapped out and washed separately to save the main kimono from the tedious process of cleaning. It's a practical little shortcut in a world obsessed with intricate, time-consuming rituals. Next comes the main kimono, the furisude you'll wear as an apprentice. With its long, dramatic sleeves, it's beautiful, but it feels heavy and restrictive. You learn to put your arms in and then pull the collar and back into place, folding the excess fabric at the waist. This fold, called the ohashori, must be a perfect, even line. You use a series of thin ropes and sashes, called kasehimo, to hold everything in place. You have to tie them tightly, so tightly that it's hard to breathe deeply. This, you're told, is part of the endurance. The tight wrapping of the kimono forces you to stand tall, to breathe shallowly, and to move with a controlled elegance. It's a physical discipline that is baked right into the clothing. Finally, the grand finale, the obi. It's a massive, beautiful sash that can be up to 13 feet long and a foot wide. You learn that a geisha never ties her own obi. It's too long and complicated. Another girl in the house helps you, wrapping the heavy silk around your waist, folding it, and tying it in a complex bow in the back. As an apprentice, the bow is a large, square bow called the Durari obi. It's so big, in fact, that it hangs down to your ankles and often requires a small piece of scaffolding to hold it up while it's being tied. It feels like wearing a small backpack made of silk. And it's a constant, physical presence. Historians still argue whether the obi was a symbol of a woman's power and worth or a tool of male control, as its complexity meant women couldn't dress themselves. For you, it's just heavy. You stand there, your new form constricted by layers of silk and tight sashes. You feel like a beautiful, fragile package. You look in the mirror and you see not yourself, but the creation you're becoming. You are dressed for the part. And for the first time, the reality of what that means truly starts to sink in. You're not just learning a craft, you're learning to become a living work of art. And the canvas is your own body. With your body now accustomed to the rigid framework of the kimono and the challenging akobo, your artistic training deepens. You are introduced to the fan dance, a form of performance that seems deceptively simple but is, in fact, an entire language in itself. You are led to a small, wooden-floored studio with a wall of mirrors, and a teacher who carries herself with a quiet authority hands you a simple, folded paper fan. The fan is your voice, she says, and your body is the story. You learn a mainstream historical fact about Japanese dance. It's known as Nihon Buyo, and it's not just about entertainment. It's a centuries-old tradition that combines elements of classical dance, acting, and mime. The first lesson is about the fan itself. You're taught how to hold it, how to open it with a single, silent snap of the wrist, and how to close it with a graceful, almost liquid motion. You practice these movements over and over until they become second nature. You learn that the fan, in a geisha's hands, can become anything. It can be a flower blooming, a bird taking flight, a waterfall, or the moon rising. The subtlety is key. You can't just wave the fan around, you must imbue it with purpose. You feel a little silly at first, trying to make a piece of paper and wood become a crashing wave. But you watch your teacher and see the magic she creates. Her movements are so precise, so full of intention, that you can almost see the water spray. A quirky historical tidbit you learn is that the colors and designs of the fans themselves held special significance. A fan with a cherry blossom design was used for a spring dance. One with a willow tree for a dance about a quiet, rainy day. Every detail, from the material to the motif, was part of the performance. Your own fan is a simple, plain one for now, a blank slate for you to learn on. You are not yet a storyteller. You are still learning the alphabet. Your body is the other half of the story. You learn to walk with a dancer's gait, a slow, deliberate shuffle that keeps your kimono from swaying wildly. You learn how to use your eyes, how to convey emotion without changing your expression too much. You practice for hours, your legs and arms aching, the weight of your hair feeling heavier with every passing minute. You learn a simple dance that tells a story of a woman waiting for her lover. It's a story of longing and sadness, but you are not allowed to show it in your face. The emotion must be conveyed through your body, the slight tilt of your head, the way you hold the fan to your chest, the hesitant steps of your feet. You quickly realize that a geisha's dance is not a loud display of emotion, but a quiet whisper. It's about suggestion, not explicit declaration. It's about leaving the audience to fill in the blanks with their own imagination. You feel a frustration building inside you. You want to move faster, to make a bigger gesture, to shout your emotions, but your teacher corrects you, gently but firmly. Quietness has a power all its own. She says, a geisha's power is in what she doesn't do, not in what she does. Historians still argue whether the subtle, symbolic nature of the fan dance and other geisha performances was an artistic choice or a form of social conditioning. Was it a way for geisha to express themselves in a society that gave them few other outlets? Or was it another way to keep them contained and controlled? You don't have the answer. All you know is that right now, your body feels like a puppet, and you're trying to learn the strings. You hold the fan, open it, and close it, trying to tell a story with a single, perfect motion. You are a student of silence, and the fan is your first word. The day finally comes. After months of grueling training, of falling in a kobo, of frustratingly clumsy fan movements, you are to have your first official outing, but you won't be performing. Today, you are a Minarai, which means learning by watching. You will shadow a senior geisha, a woman named Kasumi, to a real ozashiki, a banquet or party at a tea house, to observe the art you've been so desperately trying to learn. You are dressed in a simpler version of the geisha's attire, with a kimono that is still beautiful but lacks the dramatic flair of a full-fledged geisha's. Your makeup is a bit lighter, your hair a slightly less elaborate version of the momo wear. You feel like a half-finished sculpture. Kasumi is kind, but her focus is absolute. She says little as you walk through the streets of Gion. The evening air now cool and filled with the scent of grilling fish and expensive perfume. Your akobos still feel clumsy, but your new body has started to adapt. The walk is no longer a clumsy shuffle, but a deliberate, rhythmic glide. You are starting to become a geisha even before you are one. You notice the way Kasumi greets the passing shopkeepers and other geisha. A series of subtle bows and smiles. A quiet acknowledgement of the complex social hierarchy of this small district. It's a mainstream historical fact that the geisha district, particularly Gion in Kyoto, operated like a small, self-contained city, with its own rules, economy, and social structure. You arrive at the tea house, a small, elegant building that seems to pulse with a quiet energy. You feel a tremor of nerves. This is it, the real thing. The hostess greets Kasumi with a deep bow and a respectful welcome. And you're led into a room where two men sit, their faces flushed from sake. One is an older merchant, his face kind and a little tired. The other is a younger man, a bit more boisterous and prone to laughing. You sit quietly in the corner. A ghost in the room. You're there to see and not be seen, to listen and not speak. You are a fly on the wall, an apprentice to the art of the subtle. You watch Kasumi work her magic. She doesn't perform a single big dance number or sing a grand song. Instead, her performance is a quiet, continuous one. She pours sake for the men. Her movements graceful and precise. She listens intently to their conversation, laughing at the right moments, asking a thoughtful question at others. She knows the history of the tea house, the names of the famous geisha who have performed there, and she can talk about the newest trends in Tokyo and the latest poetry. She is not a silent, pretty doll. She is a conversational partner, a host, and a historian all at once. It's an intricate, beautiful, and utterly exhausting performance. You see the mental energy it takes to be this present, this in control, this aware of every detail. It's a whole new level of art. A quirky historical tidbit: geisha were so skilled at conversation and entertainment that they were often employed as spies or political negotiators. Their ability to listen, to gauge a person's mood, and to subtly influence a conversation made them valuable assets in a world where information was power. Watching Kasumi, you can see how this would be possible. She reads the room like a book. Her every action a precise, calculated move. Historians still argue whether the Minarai system was the best way to train geisha. Some believe it was a necessary rite of passage, while others argue that it simply reinforced the idea of geisha as objects of beauty rather than skilled artists in their own right. For you, right now, it feels less like an academic debate and more like a high-wire act you're watching from below. As you walk home later that night, the city is quiet, and the magic of the performance lingers in the air. You haven't spoken a single word, but you feel like you've learned more than you have in all the months of practice combined. You finally understand what it means to be a geisha. A few weeks later, you get to step onto the stage yourself, so to speak. This time, you won't be just a silent observer. This is your first real ozashiki. You are a Minarai no longer. You are an apprentice, an artist in training, and you are expected to contribute. Your hands are a little shaky as a senior geisha meticulously applies the rice powder to your face, painting the small, perfect red bow on your lips. The akobo feel impossibly tall today, and the weight of your elaborate hairstyle seems heavier than ever. You feel like a delicate, wound-up doll about to be put on display. You and an older geisha, a woman with a gentle smile named Ritsuko, are heading to a different tea house tonight. The walk is a familiar one now, but it feels different tonight. Every whisper of the silk kimono, every careful step of your akobo, feels magnified. You're no longer just practicing. This is real. You are a part of the living, breathing tradition of Gion. A mainstream historical fact you've learned is that the geisha profession was often passed down through generations, with geisha houses acting as a kind of family, a web of tradition and art that stretched back for centuries. You feel the weight of that history on your shoulders. The tea house is a beautiful, old building with a quiet, peaceful garden. Inside, you're led to a room where 3 men are seated. One of them the same kind-faced merchant you saw on your first outing. He smiles when he sees you, a warm, genuine smile that calms your nerves a little. Ritsuko and the merchant, Mr. Ito, exchange greetings with a casual elegance that tells you they're old acquaintances. You sit quietly, as you did before, but this time, you are expected to engage. You're told to just listen at first, to find a moment to speak, to offer a simple observation or a quiet joke. You watch Ritsuko with a kind of awe. She is not performing in the traditional sense. She is weaving a spell. She plays a beautiful, mournful tune on her shamisen. Her fingers a blur of motion. She dances a short, graceful dance with a fan that tells a story of a lovesick woman waiting by the river. But the most impressive part is her conversation. She knows when to make a joke, when to offer a quiet word of comfort, and when to be a silent, sympathetic presence. She is a master of emotional nuance. And you realize that this, more than any dance or song, is the true art of the geisha. A quirky historical tidbit: The tea houses in Gion often had specific secret codes for geisha to communicate with the hostesses. A geisha might signal with a particular way of holding her fan. For example, to indicate that a patron was getting too drunk or that she needed to leave soon. It's a reminder that this world of beauty and art is also a world of careful strategy and unspoken communication. You find your moment. Mr. Ito is talking about a new poetry collection. And you, remembering a fragment you'd heard from another geisha, offer a simple line of poetry you'd been practicing. The moonlight on the water. A silent lantern. It's not much, but it's enough. Mr. Ito looks at you, and his eyes light up. A fine observation, he says. You have a good eye. The compliment, simple as it is, makes your heart swell with a quiet pride. You've done it. You've been seen not just as a pretty face, but as a person with a thought, a feeling, a little bit of art to offer. Historians still argue whether a geisha's education was a genuine pursuit of art for its own sake, or merely a means to an end, a way to attract wealthy patrons and secure a stable life. For you, right now, it feels like both. You love the feeling of a perfect note on the shamisen, the flow of a dance, the quiet pride of offering a well-chosen line of poetry, but you also know that these are the tools of your trade, the key to your livelihood. The ozashiki ends, and you feel exhausted, but also elated. You are no longer just an apprentice. You are a working geisha. Now that you are a working apprentice, your world expands from the confines of the Okiya to the labyrinthine streets of Gion. You learn that this small district is a world unto itself, with its own unspoken rules and a strict social hierarchy. You are no longer just a girl. You are a moving piece of art. And you must act the part. The most important lesson you learn is the unwritten geography of Gion. The pathways you must take, and the places you must avoid. A mainstream historical fact you learn, almost by osmosis, is that the geisha district was carefully regulated by the government, with specific boundaries and rules that governed who could live and work there. It was, in essence, a licensed world of pleasure and art. Your walks to the various tea houses become lessons in social navigation. You learn to greet the other geisha you pass with a precise bow, the depth of which indicates their seniority. You learn to smile a little more deeply for the powerful proprietors of the tea houses and a little more respectfully for the older patrons. You're taught to ignore the stares of the tourists and the occasional rude whisper from a drunken passerby. You are in a different world than they are, and their world does not touch yours. You learn to hold yourself with a quiet dignity that repels their curiosity. A quirky historical tidbit you learn from one of the older geisha is the concept of a ghost geisha. This was a geisha who was so skilled at moving silently through the streets that she seemed to appear and disappear like a spirit, never making a sound. It was a sign of great grace and skill, and it's something you start to strive for. Even in your clumsy akobo, you want to be a part of the quiet magic of Gion. Not a noisy intruder. You start to listen to the sounds of the street in a different way, distinguishing the clack of a senior geisha's akobo from the more hurried footsteps of a tourist. The hierarchy of the tea houses is another lesson entirely. You learn which tea houses cater to the most powerful clients, which ones are more relaxed, and which ones are a little less respectable. The tea house is where a geisha's reputation is made. A tea house that hosts an exclusive, sophisticated crowd will often demand a higher level of artistry from its geisha. Your reputation is tied to the places you are hired to work. And you learn to be discerning. You're not just a commodity, you are a brand, a purveyor of a certain kind of experience. This is what separates a truly great geisha from a mediocre one. You don't just sell your art, you curate your reputation. You also learn about the role of the dana, a wealthy patron who supports a geisha. It's an unspoken but understood part of the geisha world. You learn to watch for the subtle signs, the extra gifts, the quiet attentiveness from a particular patron. You're told that a dana is not a husband or a lover in the Western sense, but a benefactor, a person who helps a geisha with her debts, supports her artistic career, and becomes her trusted confidant. Historians still argue whether the Dana system was a form of legalized prostitution or a unique type of sponsorship. But for you, right now, it's a source of security. A promise of a future where you will be able to pursue your art without the constant pressure of financial debt. As you walk home late one night, the lanterns of Gion casting long shadows, you feel a new sense of belonging. The streets are no longer a confusing maze, but a familiar and comforting world. You are a part of the rhythm of this place, a quiet whisper in its ancient song. The world of Gion is small, insular, and often very restrictive, but it is also a place of beauty, art, and a kind of fierce independence that you are just beginning to understand. You are a geisha, and this is your home. The quiet world of Gion is stirred by a new presence. You notice him at one of the finer tea houses. The older merchant, Mr. Ito, is often there, and he is always accompanied by the same man. This man is a younger, wealthier businessman from Tokyo, and he has an aura of confidence that is both attractive and a little intimidating. He doesn't laugh loudly or make boisterous jokes. He listens, and you notice that when you are performing, his eyes are often on you, not with a hungry stare, but with a quiet, appreciative intensity. This is how you are introduced to your first potential Dana. You learn the subtle dance of a potential sponsorship. The gifts start small: a beautiful fan, a small box of sweets. They are not grand, expensive gifts, but thoughtful ones. He asks about your life, your artistic training, your dreams. He asks what poetry you are studying and what new songs you are learning. He treats you like a person, not a performance, and it's a stark contrast to many of the other patrons, who see you as a temporary diversion. This man, whose name is Kenji, sees you. You learn a mainstream historical fact about the Dana system: it wasn't a contractual arrangement, but a relationship based on mutual respect and affection. A geisha could refuse a Dana, and a Dana could choose to stop their support at any time. It was a delicate balance of power and a relationship that was built on trust. Kenji begins to visit the tea house more often, and he often requests your presence. Your conversations with him are different. He talks about art and literature and the changing world outside of Kyoto. He treats you as an intellectual equal, and you find yourself talking to him about your hopes and fears, about the pressure of the training and the quiet loneliness of the okiya. You feel a kind of emotional intimacy with him that you haven't felt with anyone since you left your family. It's a strange, confusing feeling. You're grateful for his attention and kindness, but you're also aware of the transactional nature of the relationship. It's a funny-ish detail, but you learn that some geisha would refer to their Dana as their sugar daddy. A cheeky, modern twist on an ancient tradition. A quirky historical tidbit you learned from an older geisha in your house is that the Dana system was often a way for a geisha to escape the immense debts she owed to the okiya. The training, the kimonos, and the upkeep were all incredibly expensive, and a geisha was often in debt for many years. A Dana would often pay off this debt, giving the geisha a kind of freedom she wouldn't have otherwise. It's a powerful incentive, and you find yourself thinking about it more often than you'd like. The moment finally comes when Kenji makes his offer. He does it quietly, without fanfare. During a late-night tea ceremony, he tells you that he respects your art, your intellect, and your spirit. He tells you that he wants to be your Dana and that he wants to support your career and your life. He promises to pay off your debts and to support you in becoming a fully fledged geisha. He asks if you would accept his patronage, and you are filled with a strange mix of emotions: gratitude, fear, and a little bit of sadness. The moment you accept, you will no longer be an apprentice. You will be a geisha with a patron. Your life will change in ways you can't yet imagine. Historians still argue whether the Dana system was a choice or a form of forced subservience. For you, right now, it feels like both. You are choosing him, but you are also choosing to escape the debt and the insecurity of your life. You are trading one kind of freedom for another. You look at Kenji, at his kind eyes and gentle smile, and you say yes. The world of Gion, which was once a confusing maze, now feels like it has a path for you. You have a sponsor, a protector, and a supporter. You are no longer just an apprentice. You are a geisha with a future. With your debt now paid and a generous patron, Kenji, by your side. Your training is formally concluded. You are no longer a maiko, you are a geisha. The transition is marked by a series of ceremonies, culminating in your official debut. All Mizuage. This is not a party, but a deeply symbolic rite of passage that marks your transformation from a child to a woman. From an apprentice to a professional artist. The entire okiya is a flutter with preparations. Your most beautiful kimono is selected, and your hair is styled in a new, more mature, and even more complex hairstyle called the uiwata. The bow of your obi is now tied in a different style. A subtle signal that you are a full-fledged geisha. The main event is the Sansankudo, or the 339 times ceremony. It's a formal ritual where you and the proprietress of the okiya drink 3 cups of sake. Each one 3 times. The first cup is a pledge of loyalty to the okiya, your new family. The second cup is a pledge to the geisha community, your new world. And the third cup is a pledge to your art, your new life. A mainstream historical fact you learn is that this ceremony is actually a form of a Japanese wedding ritual. A symbolic marriage to the okiya and the geisha life. You are, in essence, marrying your profession. The rest of the day is a blur of congratulations, of other geisha and tea house proprietors stopping by to wish you well. You are no longer just a girl. You are a geisha with a name, a reputation, and a future. Your face is painted with the same rice powder, but it feels different today. It's no longer a mask to hide behind. It's a canvas to present your art. Your hands, once clumsy and calloused, now move with the practiced grace of a true artist. You are, for the first time, a completed work. You are ready. A quirky historical tidbit you learn from an older geisha is about the tradition of ohaguro, or blackening one's teeth. While this practice was largely a thing of the past by the 1920s, some older geisha would still do it as a sign of their mature status. It's a funny-ish detail that sounds bizarre to you, but it's a reminder that the world you are in is a living, breathing museum of tradition, with customs that can sometimes be a little strange. The world of Gion is constantly changing, but some things remain the same. Your first evening as a full-fledged geisha is both exhilarating and terrifying. You are no longer the quiet apprentice in the corner. You are now expected to be the main event, to perform, to entertain, to carry the conversation. You dance a beautiful, complicated dance with a fan that tells a story of a crane flying to the sun, a symbol of your new life and your rising status. You play a haunting tune on the shamisen that you have practiced for months. The applause is warm and genuine, and you feel a quiet pride that you have never felt before. You are no longer a student. You are a master. Historians still argue whether the Mizuage ceremony was a true celebration of a geisha's artistic coming of age or a more cynical, transactional event. For you, right now, it feels like a genuine accomplishment. You have worked, suffered, and struggled for this moment. You have earned your place in this world of art and beauty. As you walk home late that night, the weight of your kimono, the height of your akobo, and the elaborate hairstyle on your head feel less like a burden and more like a part of you. You are a geisha, and this is just the beginning. Life as a geisha is not a simple, single performance existence. It's a constant juggling act of art, entertainment, and social demands. Your days are no longer just a blur of training and chores. Now, they are filled with appointments, performances, and the constant need to be on. You have your regular clients, like Kenji, who often requests you for quiet tea ceremonies where you discuss books and poetry. But you also have new clients, sometimes loud, sometimes boisterous, for whom you must be the perfect entertainer, the life of the party, the one who can turn a quiet gathering into a festive occasion. This is the dual nature of your new life, and you find a certain rhythm in the chaos. You learn that your life is a series of tiny, perfect performances. You must always be impeccably dressed, your makeup flawless, and your posture perfect. When you walk through the streets of Gion, you are not just walking, you are a living piece of art. And you are always being watched. You learn to smile with your eyes, to make a gesture with a fan that can speak volumes without a single word. A mainstream historical fact you learn is that geisha were often considered to be the ultimate arbiters of style and taste in Kyoto. What they wore, what songs they sang, and what topics they discussed would often set the trends for the rest of the city. You feel a certain power in this, a quiet kind of influence that is both exhilarating and a little overwhelming. Your artistic repertoire grows. You learn new songs on the shamisen, new dances with your fan, and new poems to recite. You are constantly learning, constantly practicing. Your teachers are still a part of your life, but now you have more autonomy. You can choose which performances to take, which new arts to study, and which clients to prioritize. Kenji, your Dana, is a source of quiet support, but he never tries to control you. He simply encourages your artistic growth, and he is a steady, reassuring presence in your life. It's a wonderful feeling to be an independent woman with a career and a patron who supports your ambitions. You think about the apprentices in your house, still scrubbing floors and learning their craft, and you feel a quiet gratitude for the path you've chosen. A quirky historical tidbit you learn from an older geisha is about the tradition of koro, or incense clocks. These were a kind of timer made of incense that would burn at a specific rate, and geisha would often use them to measure the length of their performances. A longer performance would mean a higher fee. It's a funny-ish detail that reminds you of the practical, business-like side of your profession, a side that is often hidden by all the beautiful art and elegant rituals. A geisha is a businesswoman as much as she is an artist. Historians still argue whether a geisha's life was truly a path to independence or simply a different form of bondage. Was she an independent artist? Or was she still beholden to her okiya and her dana? You, as the geisha, feel a sense of freedom. The freedom to pursue your art, to live a comfortable life, and to be respected for your intelligence and your talent. But you also know that your life is not entirely your own. Your choices are always made within the careful, intricate framework of the geisha world. You have a quiet life of your own, a personal world of books and art, but you also have a public life that is a constant performance. You are an artist, a hostess, and a businesswoman all at once. And for now, you are happy. You have found your place in this world. Despite the beautiful performances and the steady rhythm of your life, there is a quiet, emotional complexity to being a geisha. It's a life lived in two worlds, the public world of art and entertainment, and the private world of your own thoughts and feelings. You are a professional, and you have learned to present a flawless, serene face to the world. But underneath the rice powder and the elaborate hairstyle, you are a human being with a full range of emotions. There are moments of quiet loneliness, a feeling that your art, your beautiful life, is a bubble that is separate from the rest of the world. You see the families and the children walking on the streets of Gion, and you feel a pang of longing for a simpler, more conventional life. You find yourself contemplating the nature of your relationships. Your friends are other geisha, women who understand the unique pressures and joys of this life. You are a family, a sisterhood of artists, but it's a family built on shared discipline and professional camaraderie, not on blood. Your relationship with Kenji, your Dana, is a wonderful source of emotional and financial support, but it's not a conventional romance. You have a deep, genuine affection for him, a quiet respect for his kindness and his intelligence. But you know that this relationship is also a business arrangement, a fact that is always present, a quiet hum in the background of your interactions. A mainstream historical fact you learn is that many geisha did form deep, loving relationships with their dana, but these relationships were rarely, if ever, a pathway to marriage. They were a world unto themselves. A quirky historical tidbit you learn from a book of poetry is about a famous geisha who would write secret poems and hide them in the folds of her obi. These poems were a way for her to express her true feelings, the ones that she could not share with her patrons or even her fellow geisha. It's a beautiful and poignant detail that resonates with you. You, too, have a secret world, a world of thoughts and feelings that are hidden from the beautiful public performance of your life. You find yourself spending time in the quiet garden of the okiya, reading books and thinking about your place in the world. You have a career, but you also have a soul, and the two are not always in harmony. You also have a complex relationship with the idea of your own identity. The you of the geisha is so different from the you of the village girl you once were. You've traded your old name, your old identity, and your old dreams for a new one. Sometimes, when you look in the mirror, you see a stranger, a beautiful, accomplished, and successful stranger, but a stranger nonetheless. Historians still argue whether the geisha identity was a form of self-expression or a complete erasure of a woman's personal self. You feel that it is a little bit of both. You have poured your heart and soul into your art, and you have found a part of yourself in the process. But you have also had to sacrifice a part of yourself to become this person. It's a bittersweet feeling, a constant push and pull between who you were and who you have become. You think about your life, this beautiful, intricate cage you live in. It's a life of grace, beauty, and art, but it's also a life of careful control, emotional distance, and unspoken rules. You wouldn't trade it for anything, not for the simplicity of a village life or the conventionality of a normal marriage. But you know that this life, this beautiful, lonely, and profoundly artistic life, comes with a price, and you are, for now, happy to pay it. The vibrant, insular world of Gion, which has been your entire universe for so many years, begins to show the first cracks of change. It's the 1930s now, and the world outside is in a state of flux. The Great Depression has reached Japan, and the formerly wealthy patrons who once lavished you with gifts and attention are now a little more reserved. The tea houses are a little less crowded. The lanterns in the streets of Gion seem to burn a little less brightly. You are a professional, and you have learned to navigate these changes with a quiet grace. But you can feel the shift in the air. The rhythm of Gion is changing, becoming a little slower, a little more somber. A mainstream historical fact you learn is that the geisha population in Japan saw a significant decline during this period, as economic hardship made the luxury of their art a less viable profession. You see it in your own life. Kenji, your Dana, is still kind and supportive, but his visits are less frequent, and his gifts are more modest. He apologizes for it, but you just smile and tell him that his presence is enough. You understand. The world is changing, and the rules of the geisha world are changing with it. The young apprentices in the okiya are a little less hopeful, a little more practical. They talk about what they will do if the geisha world disappears, if the traditions they are learning become obsolete. It's a sad conversation, and you try to reassure them. But a part of you knows their fears are not unfounded. A quirky historical tidbit you learned from an old newspaper is that during this time, some geisha would perform in public parks and squares to earn extra money. A stark contrast to the quiet, exclusive world of the tea house. It's a sign of the times. A sign that the geisha world is becoming a little less private, a little more public, a little more desperate. You are no longer a young geisha. Your face is still painted with the rice powder, but you can see the faint lines around your eyes that the makeup can't hide. Your movements are still graceful, but they are now infused with the quiet wisdom of a person who has lived this life. You have a quiet dignity that comes with age and experience. You have seen many apprentices come and go, many patrons, many performances. You are a part of the history of Gion now, a living piece of its past. You find yourself spending more time with the older geisha, women who have seen the world change before, women who have stories of a different Gion, a Gion of a different time. Historians still argue whether the decline of the geisha world in the 1930s was a necessary step towards modernizing Japan or a tragic loss of a beautiful, unique cultural tradition. For you, it is simply a reality. The world is moving on, and you are a part of a beautiful, fading art form. You think about your future. You could become a proprietress of an okiya, passing on the traditions to a new generation of apprentices. You could become a dance or music teacher, a master of your craft. Or you could simply retire, a quiet, respected woman with a rich history and a beautiful past. The choice is still yours. But the path ahead feels a little less certain than it once did. The sun is setting on the golden age of Gion, and you are there. Watching it go down, the scent of incense and old wood, the sound of the shamisen, the feel of the silk kimono against your skin, all of it feels a little more precious now. A little more fragile. You are a geisha, and you have lived a beautiful, intricate, and unique life. And you are here, at the end of a long, long day, to watch the world change.